Hello again. How are you? How have you been? I'd like to ask you all a question. Have you ever been catfished? Were you lied to? Deceived? Did you give them information you know you shouldn't have? Were they after money? Did you send them things you would soon regret? Or even worse, did you fall in love? When it was all said and done, did you find yourself asking, why? Why would you do this to me? In today's video, we look to answer that question as we dive into a Redditor's heartbreaking confession of deceit. This is a catfish confession. The following post was made in 2012 to the r/confession subreddit, titled, "I pretended to be a guy online, and a woman moved halfway across the country to be with someone that didn't exist, because I was too scared to tell the truth. I've never, ever told anyone this, and I've never even written it down. Warning for a wall of text, sorry if this is long, I just have to get it out. From late 1999 to early 2001, I pretended to be a man online and had several women that I communicated with daily through email, nearly all of whom wanted to have a relationship with me. I created an entire backstory for this fake man, and I got so the backstory was consistent that it seemed real, even to me. I found older women in their late 40s and 50s through dating sites and just by contacting random strangers through instant messenger. I was never flirty with them, never sexual, nothing like that, but all of the women I emailed were vulnerable in some way. A couple of them were unemployed and living with family. One of them was marginally employed, but suffered from poor health. Another was recently divorced. Another was just looking for some sort of adventure in her life. I liked the attention. I liked always having emails waiting for me. I liked it that I was someone these people admired. It eased my loneliness. At the time, I was a 14-year-old high school student, stuck in a new town in the middle of nowhere with no one to talk to. I didn't like people my own age, and I had no real interest in stuff that teenagers normally are into. Like I said, it was never romantic. I'm a straight female. And on the few occasions that a woman would make it clear she wanted a romantic relationship with me, I ended it. I told them at the time that I was only looking for friends, and that I thought women made better pen pals. I gave them some bullshit about women being easier to talk to, open to new ideas, etc. But really, all it was that I was afraid if I had a male pen pal, he'd eventually realize that he wasn't talking to another man. I would take stories from my own life, or stories that I had heard, spin them a little, and make them part of this guy's background. I planned out what college he'd gone to during what years, what towns he lived in, what jobs he'd had, what countries he'd traveled to, what businesses he had owned. I made details about his childhood, even right down to what the wallpaper in his childhood bedroom had looked like. I had an entire timeline of his life, so that the story would be as consistent from person to person, so that I would never be caught in my own lie. His life was a reflection of what I wanted my life to be at that age. And so I was sort of living through this character. And it worked. People believed me. Like I said, I found some of these women through online dating sites, but I had no intention of being romantic with them. Whenever one of them contacted me through the dating site, I always had an excuse as to why I didn't want some sort of romantic online relationship. This profile is sort of old, and I'm sort of seeing someone new now. I really want to get to know you first, etc. A few of them were surprisingly fine with just being friends. It's just that dating sites are a good place to find people who are willing to open themselves up to another person. Remember, this was the early 2000s, before there were a lot of pen pal sites. I happily hid behind this persona online, and eventually began instant messaging every day with this one woman named Pat. Pat was going through a rough time in her life. She was deeply in debt, unemployed, living with her sister, whom she despised. There had been a domino effect of shitty happenstances that occurred in her life over the course of a few years that had landed her in that position. Pat was in her early 50s, and it got so that I really enjoyed talking with her. She was smart and funny, and open to talking about new ideas that were fermenting in my teenaged head, which I pretended were coming from a 50-something dude who was undergoing an emotional awakening after a lifetime of emotional suppression. She didn't have anything better to do, and I, being a now 15-year-old teenager on a summer break in a town where I had no friends, didn't have anything better to do either. Pat lived in Minnesota, and I told her that I lived in southern Florida near the ocean. She loved hearing about what the oceans looked like during the day. I knew how to access webcams of the ocean. She did not. So I would just tell her what the waves looked like. I even sent her some shells from a beach when I vacationed in Florida late that summer so the postal stamp code would be near where I told her I lived. I made up historical facts to tell her, which were completely false. I went through relationship dramas as this man she advised me on. I told her of spiritual awakenings that I'd experienced. She told me things that she'd never told anyone, etc. I found pictures online of a random nobody and sent those to her, claiming it was me. I found other pictures of a random house and sent those to her, claiming it was my home. We were good friends. It's just that I wasn't who she thought I was. Pat very nearly caught me a few times, because sometimes she wouldn't believe what I'd said, and she'd tell me she didn't know if I was real. I always managed to smooth it over somehow. However, she wanted to talk to me on the phone, and worse, she wanted to meet me. In fact, by the end, she insisted on it. By that time, she had started working again and had some money. She also wanted out of her situation and to start over. I don't know why I did this, but eventually, we got to talking about her coming to live with me at an entirely fake address in southern Florida. We planned it all out meticulously and had known each other for over a year. I even told her that I had a friend who was a business owner and would give her a job. This was the only time I spoke to Pat on the phone, when I was pretending to be this friend with a business and I interviewed her for a job that didn't exist, in a small business that didn't exist. She wanted to speak to me, the fake me, on the phone. And somehow I always managed to beg her off, telling her that my phone line was broken, which was ridiculous since most of the internet still ran off the phone line in those days, and that I would call her soon. Soon. I promise. Soon. I would lay awake at night, telling myself that I had to tell Pat who I really was. This woman was about to uproot her entire life to be with someone who didn't exist. But I felt like I was in too deep, and a big part of me really believed that this lady would connect the dots, and really wouldn't go through with it. I was also 15, and scared of getting in trouble. With who? I don't know. The day came when she was going to fly from Minnesota to the airport near where I lived in southern Florida. We had one last instant messenger conversation, with her very excited about her new life, and with me assuring her that I would see her in just a few hours, that I would be there to pick her up. I'd have a sign and balloons and everything. I gave her a made-up phone number to reach me with. I agreed that she could stay with me at my place for a few weeks, until she got a couple of paychecks under her belt, and she could find her own place. It was like watching a stranger typing those words to Pat, like I was on autopilot, like it wasn't real. She had told me she had never taken this big of a chance, but that for once in her life, she wanted adventure. Adventure like the kind I, or rather my fake persona, had had in his life. She was tired of being scared of life and wanted to embrace it. Those next several hours were torturous. I tried to act normal at home, but it was impossible. Again, I really believed that she would wise up and call it off at the last minute. Unfortunately, she didn't. A day later, I get an absolutely irate email from Pat, demanding to know where I was. The phone number had connected her to a dry cleaner's. The business didn't exist according to the Yellow Pages. She was writing the email from a library, and only had enough money to stay at a hotel another few nights. And then she didn't know what she was going to do, since she didn't have enough money to get back home. She said she had never taken a leap of faith in her entire life, and that she had trusted me because she just needed one person in the world who she could trust, and who believed she was a worthwhile human being after all of the shit that had happened to her in the past few years. She berated herself for being an idiot, for being misled, for going with her heart instead of her brain. It tore me up. Look, I realized that both she and I made mistakes, but it tore me the hell up to know that there was a lady out there somewhere, someone I considered a friend despite everything, that was going through such turmoil, and that I had caused it. Her last email was one last attempt to get in touch with me, pleading to please help her. She must have realized by that time that I wasn't real, but was hoping I could somehow help her out anyway. But there was nothing I could do. I never answered. In fact, I shut down that entire email address and put the entire episode behind me. I don't know what happened to her. There were so many red flags she should have seen. The fact that I wouldn't speak to her on the phone being the biggest. I think she desperately was looking for something in her life, and however temporarily, I managed to give it to her. Maybe she just wanted to believe, and so she ignored her rational mind. But you know that episode of The Simpsons where Bart writes fake love letters to Mrs. Krabappel, who believes they're from a real guy? And how torn up Bart is when he realizes how upset and humiliated Mrs. K will be when she realizes she's being duped. That's how I felt. I let the whole thing go too far, and I must have really hurt and humiliated someone. I feel terrible about that. It wasn't right. I shouldn't have done it. No excuses. Period. Every time this memory pops into my head, I get that cold feeling of shame all throughout my body. I don't even know why I did all this. Pat, wherever you are, I'm sorry. Now, normally, this is where I would end my videos. However, today, I'd like to share something with you. I'm going to share a personal experience with you about catfishing, and a trick that might save you someday. A few years ago, I was on Twitter, and a very attractive girl reached out to me through the DMs. I was pretty excited. She was smart, funny, and clearly flirting with me. But the conversation got pretty suggestive rather quickly. She started sending me pictures of herself, each more revealing than the next, and I got skeptical. As she continued sending me these pictures, she hinted that she wanted me to send one back. But something didn't seem right. I grabbed one of her pictures and used a reverse image search website called TinEye to see if it was present anywhere else on the internet. Sure enough, I found an entire stash of pictures of this attractive girl hidden in a comment forum on a random website. Not only did I find pictures she'd sent me, but I also found pictures this person intended on sending me. Sure enough, one by one, this person continued to send me pictures, masquerading as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed fit girl. As I watched this person type suggestive messages to me and continue to send me things, I started to wonder, what was their plan? If I sent something back, would my pictures end up in some comment forum hidden in the corners of the internet? Was I going to be blackmailed and extorted for money? I contemplated sending a screenshot of the stash of pictures I discovered, but I was too fascinated and horrified by this person's commitment to a lie. I couldn't help but watch this person continue to lie to me. It was truly disturbing. I never got the chance to confront them, because the next day, the account was gone. The internet can be a fun place, but keep your guard up. And remember, a reverse image search can make a world of difference. First of all, I just want to give a huge thank you to all my new followers here on this channel. And I want to thank everybody that liked, commented, and shared my last video. I think I might have had about 20 or 30 subscribers beforehand. And as I recorded this video, I noticed that my follower count had jumped to about 120. And this is just insane for me. I never thought that I would get this far. I know I'm still basically nowhere, but just the fact that I broke 100 meant the world to me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that right off the bat. I know I've been gone for a while. Life got kind of crazy. And I just didn't have the heart to make these. But as soon as I saw this massive jump in success, I found that inspiration again. And I want to thank you all for bringing me back to this channel. Thank you. I tried to get as experimental as I could with this new stock footage and new equipment I have to record. And I should have some fun things for you guys in the future. Thank you all for your support. Thank you. I hope you liked the video. And remember,
be scared. Be very scared.